devotee, he is always situated in his eternal loving relationship with Krishna. But he is teaching by his example. He is teaching not only the Ashtanga yogis how to perfectly quit the body by selecting the most auspicious moment for quitting the body and then preparing to actually quit the body at that time. That is also one of the perfections of Ashtanga Yoga. Then Bhishma is also a pure devotee, so he's teaching devotees how to glorify the Lord. Devotees' business is different than the activities of the Ashtanga yogis. Devotees' business is simply to glorify the Lord, always. Whenever death comes, it doesn't matter, because the devotee is absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So here he is particularly remembering the Supreme Lord Krishna's most intimate devotees, the gopis. So he is remembering how Lord Krishna is very merciful to his devotees, and he practically becomes subservient to the devotees when the devotees are able to render service very intimately. So the gopis, their speciality is that they were able to attract the attention of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is self-satisfied, who is full in himself. They can attract his attention also simply by smiling. Krishna's smile is celebrated in all the three worlds, even in the spiritual world. His smile is the most enchanting smile. It captivates everyone. It does captivate the gopis also. But Krishna also gets captivated by the gopi smile, because of the gopis' surrender to Krishna. They are able to attain qualitative equality with Krishna. Now, this qualitative equality is to be carefully understood. It's not like the equality that the impersonalists seek. They want to become one with the Lord in all respects. But devotees, they desire qualitative equality, means the spiritual purity. The Lord is completely spiritually pure, and devotees, pure devotees, are also completely spiritually pure. We spirit souls in this material world, even though our actual characteristic as spirit is we are completely pure, but we do become contaminated by material association. But that contamination is not like matter and spirit get mixed up. It's not like that. Asangoyam purushaha. The living entity as spirit is never touched by matter. Never touched even by matter. But the three gunas, material nature or matter, Hare Krishna. Matter consisting of the three gunas, the three modes of material nature, actually influences the living entity in such a way that the rebellious living beings, the forgetful living beings in the material world are completely bewildered, so that in that bewildered state they may try to lord over material nature. They may try to become independent enjoyers and fail to do so and become realized of their actual pure position in relationship with the Supreme Pure, Krishna. Therefore, the living entity is said to be contaminated in the sense that the consciousness becomes bewildered. The living entity becomes bewildered. The consciousness becomes completely affected by influence, not by mixing, not by any kind of contact. It is not a contact, it is an influence. Just by being in the atmosphere. Just like air is passing over a rose garden, so the air acquires the fragrance of the rose, but that fragrance doesn't mix with the air, because after passing over a rose garden, those who are able to smell that air, they get a fragrant rose smell. But a little distance away, there is this filthy drain water, sewage water that is flowing. Typically in India, we have these open drains. In US, you don't have open drains, so you don't know maybe. But in India, we have these open drains. So the air, same air passing over the filthy drain, sewage water, the smell of the air becomes very, very filthy, obnoxious smell. The air is actually untouched by either the filthy sewage water or the rose garden, the rose flower. But its influence, that's the description, that's the example given in the Bhagavad Gita. Vayur gandhani vashayat. The living entity in the material atmosphere develops a certain type of consciousness by being influenced by the material qualities of the three modes. Just like air becomes either fragrant or bad smelling simply by being in the vicinity of a fragrant rose or dirty sewage water. Same way, we also, by being in this material atmosphere, our consciousness becomes material-like. So the simple remedy for this is to come into the spiritual atmosphere. Simply by being in the spiritual atmosphere, spiritually surcharged with transcendental qualities, our consciousness becomes spiritualized. Spiritualized means that is our original consciousness. So in that sense, it is not some imposition of a different kind of consciousness. It is the original consciousness which is revived. That is Krishna consciousness, is revived. So that's the process. Bhagavad Gita describes, Krishna describes, Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha. Mahatmas means the devotees. The devotees always take shelter of this daivi prakriti. Here daivi prakriti refers to the internal potency, the spiritual potency of Krishna. They don't remain under the influence of the material potency, the gunamayi maya, but they come under the shelter, protection of the yoga maya, the internal potency. So the internal potency is indicated in the Hare Krishna mantra by the word Hare. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we are under the shelter and protection and influence of the internal potency. And also, we are able to directly come under Krishna's shelter also, Hare Krishna. So Bhishma Deva, being a pure devotee, is always situated in the internal potency. But to teach us, he is offering such prayers as remembering the Supreme Lord, his pure devotees, and particularly his pastimes, his activities in his loving relationship with his devotees. Among all the devotees, the topmost devotees, the gopis. Why are they considered the topmost devotees? Because their service is the purest. That doesn't mean that the other devotees in the spiritual world, their service is impure. No. The degree of purity, there's a degree of purity. That is, that there is no tinge of any material contamination in the spiritual world at all. There is no material contamination at all. It is completely pure spirit, pure spiritual atmosphere. But still, there is a difference in the intimacy of the service rendered. The more intimate one, with more intimacy, if somebody renders service, they are able to actually attract the attention of Krishna more and more and more. So among the 5 primary rasas, the beginning of pure devotional service is described as Shantarasa. Shantarasa is the neutral stage of love of God. Neutral stage of love of God. where one is just beginning to awaken the ecstasy of loving service. Just beginning to awaken. Just like the Kumaras, they happened to go to Vaikuntha. And what happened? In Vaikuntha, they were immediately attracted by the transcendental beauty of the Lord's form. Then they very spontaneously, seeing the Lord, they immediately fell flat to offer him obeisances. And when they offered obeisances to the lotus feet of the Lord, thus the fragrance of the tulsi leaves, which the Lord's lotus feet is always decorated with, that fragrance entered their nostrils and they experienced a change of consciousness which they had never before experienced. And they began to feel transcendental ecstasy by just smelling the fragrant tulsi leaves at the lotus feet of the Lord. Immediately they became devotees. Before that they were yogis. They were liberated souls. But upon smelling the fragrant tulsi leaves at the lotus feet of the Lord, they became pure devotees. So, this is the effect of contact with the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Before that, they were situated in the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. They were liberated because they had realized the impersonal Brahman by their severe austerities and cultivation of transcendental knowledge. They had attained the perfection of that practice, spiritual practice. But they could only realize the Brahman feature when they actually happened to come in contact with the personal feature of the Lord, the personality of Godhead in the Vaikuntha planet, Lord Vishnu. Then the personal characteristics of the Lord, first they appreciated the transcendental beauty of the form of the Lord. So their natural reaction was to immediately offer him respectful obeisances. Immediately offer him respectful obeisances. But by the Lord's mercy, something more happened. It did not stop at just appreciation of the Lord's transcendental qualities. It also, that fragrance of the tulsi leaves transformed their consciousness to experience what we say as ecstasy, transcendental ecstasy. That is a special feature of the personal aspect of the Lord's, of the Supreme Absolute Truth's characteristics. There is no possibility of any ecstasy by realizing the Brahman feature. No ecstasy. By realizing the Paramatma feature, no ecstasy. There is joy, spiritual, transcendental joy, transcendental happiness in Brahman realization and Paramatma realization. But that kind of transcendental happiness is very, 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 very insignificant compared to the transcendental joy of devotional service, pure devotional service. The comparison is made, this transcendental happiness upon realizing the Brahman or the Paramatma feature is Brahmananda. It's called Brahmananda. That Brahmananda is millions and billions and trillions of times greater than the greatest material happiness. But that Brahmananda is the beginning of what we say as spiritual happiness. Spiritual happiness increases more and more and more and more as the devotee, as the transcendentalist, after this Brahman or Paramatma realization, makes further progress by taking to devotional service. This is told by Krishna specifically in the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. One who comes to the spiritual platform by practicing spiritual life, attains the spiritual platform, Brahma Bhuta, above the three gunas, Sagunan Samatityaitan, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma immediately becomes joyful by experiencing transcendental happiness. Transcendental happiness. Because of the realization of the absolute truth, the reservoir of all pleasure, spiritual pleasure. So just contacting that reservoir of spiritual pleasure, they immediately become joyful. Na shochati na kankshati, no more lamentation, no more hankering, none of the material qualities can even touch them, can bother them in any way. Samas sarveshu bhuteshu, then they are able to see every living being as spirit soul. So equality of vision of the entire creation without any distinction of material differences. Then mad bhaktim labate param. That is the stage where devotional service begins for those transcendentalists who are not yet situated in pure devotional service. So if somebody takes to some other process of spiritual practice, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, hatha yoga, raja yoga, other than bhakti yoga, somebody takes to some other practice, gradually they are elevated to this Brahma Bhuta stage, the stage of liberation from the three modes of material nature, stage of liberation from matter. And being situated on that spiritual platform, Prasannatma, immediately they become joyful. The quality of that happiness completely changes from material to spiritual. And that is incomparable. That spiritual quality of happiness is incomparable to any type of material happiness. But if they are fortunate to take up pure devotional service without considering that they have achieved the highest perfection. If somebody thinks they are liberated and they are situated on the spiritual platform, they think that is the final perfection, then they can try to remain like that without taking up pure devotional service. But those who are progressive transcendentalists, they don't settle down for any intermediate stages of spiritual advancement. They keep making further progress, till they have reached the highest perfection of not being, there being no more further progress possible. That is, from Brahman realization to Paramatma realization to Bhagavan realization. Bhagavan is the highest aspect of the absolute truth. There is nothing further than Bhagavan. So till they come to Bhagavan realization, progressive transcendentalists keep on making more and more further progress. So Mad Bhaktim Labate Param, that is a progressive transcendentalist. But we are so fortunate because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we directly come in contact with Bhakti Yoga. We directly take up Bhakti Yoga simply by beginning to chant Hare Krishna or any aspect of Krishna consciousness. We begin pure devotional service. We begin pure devotional service. And then we make progress to directly realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, this Bhagavan feature of the Absolute Truth, directly. No Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, nothing. Because Bhagavan realization includes Brahman realization and Paramatma realization and more. The personal feature. So the Kumaras, they were fortunate to actually come directly in contact with the personality of Godhead. The Lord was very kind upon them, that He gave them darshan. And He also gave them a glimpse of what is transcendental ecstasy by their smelling the fragrant tulsi leaves at the lotus feet of the Lord. But that ecstasy is just the beginning of the loving relationship with the Lord. Just the beginning. So, the Kumaras are said to be situated in Shantarasa, where they just cross the threshold of this Bhagavan realization, just entered, just begun to develop the loving relationship in pure devotional service. So at that Shanta Rasa stage, they are able to experience a small glimpse of what is ecstasy of devotional service. But a progressive devotee can actually further make progress in that loving relationship to come to the higher stage of Dasya Rasa, where one not only appreciates the personality of Godhead as the Supreme Personality, filled with transcendental qualities which are superlative. The unlimited Supreme Personality with unlimited fame, unlimited wealth, unlimited everything. All good qualities, unlimited extent. That's the Bhagavan definition. But they begin to actively render service to the Supreme Lord. Actively begin to render service. When they actively render service, they come to the Dasya Rasa stage. Then the reciprocation, active reciprocation of the Lord begins. The Lord floods the devotee's heart in the Dasya stage with His personal love. His personal love. At the Shanta stage, the Lord is reciprocating, but it is just a glimpse. What are the kind of personal qualities? It is not just the intrinsic personal qualities of the Lord, but the reciprocation the Lord has with His dear devotee, Tulsi Maharani. You see? Tulsi Maharani is a very special devotee of the Lord. That she is able to get a permanent position at the lotus feet of the Lord. You see, Lakshmi Devi, she has got the position at the chest of the Lord. But in that position, she is not able to experience the reciprocation from the Lord the way Tulsi is experiencing at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, Lakshmi Devi leaves her position at the bosom of the Lord and comes down to His lotus feet and begins to render service to His lotus feet. So, this is the spiritual dynamics. This is completely unknown to those who are practitioners or those who have perfected the other transcendental processes. For them it is unknown. It's completely unknown. And if they are informed of such transcendental, dynamic, spiritual exchanges between the Lord and His devotees, then they think this is all some material, sentimental stuff. Because they have no understanding of the spiritual world itself. For them, the spiritual world, the beginning of the spiritual world, that Brahman effulgence is all in all. According to them, there is nothing beyond the Brahman effulgence. And when Krishna appears in this material world, they think that beyond this personality of Krishna is the Brahman effulgence. Why? Because they think Krishna is the absolute truth who has assumed a material form and descended to this material world. The absolute truth, which according to them is the impersonal Brahman. Of course, impersonal Brahman is the absolute truth. But they think that impersonal Brahman assumes a material form when the absolute truth incarnates. Or absolute truth comes to this material world. According to their own description of the absolute truth cannot come in contact with matter at all. That's the description in all the Upanishads. So then, how is it possible for the absolute truth to assume a material form? Never possible. But they contradict themselves in saying that actually it appears like the absolute truth has accepted a material form. And that they apply to not only Krishna but to themselves also, all the living entities. They think form means material form. They have no idea what is called a spiritual form. They have no idea of spiritual fragrance. They have no idea of spiritual senses because they deny the personality of the Supreme Lord, the spiritual personality, transcendent personality. They deny that. Because according to their theory or their philosophy, the highest understanding or realization of absolute truth is the impersonal Brahman. There is nothing beyond. So therefore, even if they elevate themselves to the Brahma Jyoti, the impersonal Brahman feature of the absolute truth, in the spiritual sky, in the spiritual world, they are not able to go further because they think there is nothing further, nothing greater, nothing more, nothing more. So they get stuck up in that impersonal Brahma Jyoti. But because in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti there is no activity, because according to them all activity means something material, only in the material world. Now we are in the spiritual world, so we don't want anymore anything to do with activity. So they become or try to become like inert stones, and that they consider as perfection. But actually, even though that's a stage of perfection, but the spirit soul characteristic is always to be active. So if the spirit soul is not engaged in some material activity, cannot remain inactive by so-called Brahman realization. So then that liberated soul falls down to the material atmosphere from the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, and then they begin pious activities. They begin to perform pious activities. So this is described in the most confidential literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Aruhya krichrena param padam tataha patantyadho anadruta yushmadangraya. That these impersonalists, they elevate themselves with great austerities. After millions and millions of years of impersonal meditation or impersonal worship, they elevate themselves to the Brahma Jyoti, but they can't remain there because there is no activity. Activity begins after one realizes the Bhagavan feature. Even in Paramatma feature, there is no activity, because perfection of Paramatma realization is samadhi. And what is that samadhi? Being absorbed in meditation on the Paramatma within the heart, within this material world. So that's a perfection, nothing further. But when you become absorbed like that, what about activity? No activity. So even the Paramatma realized souls, they cannot perform any activity, any spiritual activity, until they take up devotional service. Even the Brahman realized souls, they take up devotional service, then they become first class yogis, the topmost yogis, the bhakti yogis. So here Bhishma Deva, his special
prayer is that he recognizes that the gopis are purer devotees than Arjuna. That's what Prabhupada explains in the purport. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy by devotees like Bhishma Deva, but the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. What is this purified loving service? The difference in purity is the intimacy, as I told earlier. In the spiritual world, the difference is in intimacy between different categories of devotees and different rasa. So, the devotees can render intimate service only to the extent of Shanta rasa relationship and Dasya rasa relationship in Vaikuntha, or in the feature of the Lord as Narayana, Vishnu, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, etc. But the four-handed feature of the Lord, that is the four-handed feature of the Lord in the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, the four-handed feature. The devotees render pure devotional service beginning with Shanta and going up to Dasya, where there is active service, and such Dasya rasa service is more intimate than Shanta rasa service. But in the feature of the Lord as in his two-handed form as Krishna and Balaram, in the Goloka Vrindavana, two-handed feature, the intimacy is further increased in, of course, in the Vaikuntha, there is also Sakhya, but that is Sakhya is like Arjuna's relationship with Krishna, where there is also the reverential devotion. There is reverential devotion. Even though Arjuna, as a friend, relates with Krishna as his equal, but still that equality is always with the understanding that Krishna is always eternally my Lord, my superior. I am always subordinate to him. Eternally I am subordinate to him. So therefore you see Arjuna, when the Lord showed his universal form, Arjuna seeing the position of the Lord in his universal form, that he became completely terrified that I have disrespected the Lord. I disrespected the Lord. And then he began to ask forgiveness. You see Mother Yashoda, she was shown the universal form in Krishna's mouth. Right? She saw the universal form. For a moment, she thought, what is this I am seeing in my child's face, in my child's mouth? I thought he'd eaten some dirt. Oh, he has not eaten dirt. Okay. It's all right. In future, don't eat dirt. Because Krishna was telling, I have not eaten dirt, I have not eaten dirt. And Yashoda said, no, they're all complaining. Then Krishna said, actually there was some fight when we were playing, and they all became against me. So therefore they are complaining falsely. But Balram is also telling you have eaten dirt. Then Krishna said, no, actually Balram has taken their side. Normally Balram is on my side. Today Balram has taken their side. So Balram is also, agreeing to what they are saying. So Yashoda said, okay, let me see, open your mouth, let me see whether you actually eaten dirt or not. Okay, I'll open the mouth. He opened the mouth. Yashoda saw something other than dirt. But she is not going to become bewildered. Oh, my child is not my child. No. Okay, you're not eating dirt. Fine. But don't eat dirt, my dear child. I'll give you nice sweets. Close you. Finished. Go. Over. But Arjuna, upon seeing the universal form, completely bewildered. And then he began to offer prayers. That is there in the 11th chapter. So many times he is offering respects, millions of times. Again and again he is asking, please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me. None of the devotees in Vrindavan, they never ask forgiveness from Krishna. Even if Krishna performs extraordinary activities like killing demons, lifting Govardhan hill. The interesting part is that Krishna lifted Govardhan hill, they were all sheltered very nicely. Then everybody is looking, oh, this small boy is holding such a big hill. Now we should help him, no? So Nanda Maharaj and all of them, their sticks, they are trying to support that hill. You see, one picture is there, drawn by devotees. They are all trying to support that hill on their small sticks and the thin sticks. What is the weight of Govardhan hill? What is the strength of their sticks? But they are in the ecstasy of Krishna's wonderful Leela. So they forget Krishna is Supreme Lord, whether he can lift or not, they forget all that. Instead, his hand may become tired, no? So let's try to relieve his fatigue by putting our sticks. So this is called transcendental pastime with the Supreme Lord. That's why the saintly persons who are sitting and hearing Shukadeva Goswami describe Krishna Leela, they are completely amazed. The supreme absolute truth is playing with some boys, cowherd boys, and as their equal, and sometimes even as their subordinate. This is what the supreme absolute truth is. They are getting educated about the higher realization of Krishna, even greater than the realization of the personality of Godhead as Vishnu. No pastime of Vishnu or Narayana will there be the devotees becoming subservient, the Lord becoming subservient, and then the Lord actually treating the devotee like in the case of Krishna becoming the chariot driver of Arjuna, as Prabhupada mentions here. This is important to understand. Even though the Lord became subservient to Arjuna, but still, it's said here, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver, but the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. No, Lord will always remain the superior person. He'll remain the superior person. I am your chariot driver, but I am not ordinary chariot driver. I am the Supreme Lord who is doing this work of being your chariot driver, because you wanted a very good chariot driver, the best. Yes, I'll do that. So Arjuna is still like this. Whereas these devotees in Vrindavan, first of all, they don't consider Krishna as Supreme Lord. In case Krishna does something which is impossible for a cowherd boy of his age or his appearance, they think, oh, Very nice, very well done. Congratulations. They are congratulating Krishna for killing some demon, for lifting Govardhan hill. So it is completely, that is the level of intimacy. So Krishna likes that service more than the service rendered by those in reverential devotion. Krishna relishes more. Like Prabhupada gives an example, a very rich man in his business, in his office, even with his friends, because he's super rich and he's having a very high position in society, even though as friends, his friends who are not having such a high position or not so wealthy, they may kind of become little less respect and more equals, but still they'll always be conscious he is actually the superior person. But when he comes home, his wife, his son, his daughter, they will completely forget he is the topmost person in some big business. He is most respected. He is very wealthy. He is very powerful. They forget all that. And he likes that. He'll never rebuke them. If the son climbs on the father's shoulder, he'll never rebuke the son. What? You're climbing on my shoulder? No. In fact, he will try to carry that child. That is because of intimacy, intimate loving relationship. So that intimacy also in this spiritual world, in Krishna's particular Goloka Vrindavana, see, Goloka Vrindavana is special because it has all the 5 rasas. But all the 5 rasas, there is no tinge of any reverential devotion. The cows, their relationship with Krishna is on the Shantarasa relationship. But that Shantarasa is a very intimate type of Shantarasa. And the calf will come and lick Krishna's feet when Krishna is sitting with Radharani. No reverence. No reverence. Neither Krishna will tell, hey, go away now, don't come now. I'm with Radharani. Never. You see one picture, one of the devotees is drawn. This is Prabhupada's direction. That show this, that Krishna equally reciprocates with the calf and Radharani exactly according to their level of intimate service. So calf likes to lick Krishna's feet. Krishna will allow that. He'll relish it also, not just allow, he'll relish it. Radharani wants to embrace Krishna and kiss him on the cheek. That also he will relish. So, this is Krishna. And all the devotees, the cowherd boys, the monkeys, the bees, the land, the river, everyone, there is no tinge of any reverential devotion. It is pure love. It's called pure love. Pure because of the intimacy. Intimate love. And the intimacy is higher as one goes from Shantarasa to Dasyarasa to Sakyarasa to Vatsalyarasa to Madhuryarasa. And Madhuryarasa is the highest. So that if you go through this purport, you can understand that the gopis are the highest because of their most intimate loving service to Krishna. There are so many more things, but I'll stop now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.